Question number 1. You are the project manager for a project that is aiming to generate sufficient power for the national grid across the country. Your project involves upgrading the national-wide network. Your lead engineer has given you the following estimates for an activity on the critical path. 60 days most likely, 72 days pessimistic, 48 days optimistic. What's the weighted average estimate for this critical activity? So the pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely are given in the question. The average or the weighted average is the PERT estimate. It's the weighted average, and you need to apply its formula using the 3 figures in the question. PERT is an estimating technique that uses a weighted average of 3 numbers. The 3 numbers are the pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely. Plugging in the numbers in the formula is optimistic plus 4 by most likely plus pessimistic divided by 6. So the expected activity duration will be 60 days. If the question was about the range of estimate, you need to find out the standard deviation, P minus O divided by 6. Expect 1 to 2 questions in the exam about the standard deviation and the PERT estimation technique. Question number 2. In your project, you are monitoring communications throughout the entire project life cycle to ensure the information needs of the project stakeholders are met. The information typically provides status and progress information on the project risks at the level of detail by the various stakeholders. This is done through which of the following processes? So it's a communication management process, and it's very clear as the question is starting with you are monitoring communications throughout the entire project, and this is done as part of the monitor communications process. It is the process of monitoring communications throughout the entire project life cycle to ensure the information needs of the project stakeholders are met. Work performance information is an output of this process. Generally, this information provides status and progress information on the project at the level of detail required by various stakeholders as per the communication management plan and the stakeholder engagement plan. There will be 5 to 7 questions in the exam about the communication management knowledge area. Question number 3. Utility function is a commonly used technique to determine risk tolerance levels. Some project managers are more averse to risk than others. In this context, which of the following is not a commonly used classification for risk tolerance? Identifying the risk tolerance for the project stakeholders and for the organization itself is very important, and it will influence your activities in planning for risk management. Now, what are the classifications? There are 3 classifications: risk averse, risk seeker, and risk neutral or neutral risk taker. There is no classification known as the risk mitigator. The 3 commonly used classifications for risk tolerance are risk averse, risk taker, and neutral risk taker. This is known as the utility function. Expect a question about the risk classifications. Usually this question will come in this format, or it will come in the format describing a stakeholder and asking you how can we classify this stakeholder. Question number 4. You are managing a project which is expected to be 30% completed with the planned budget. However, the executive management is insisting to start the project with 50% confidence level on the planned budget. As the project manager, you want to satisfy the executive management requirement. What is the required additional contingency reserve? We solved 2 questions similar to this one earlier. You just need to determine the expected budget at 30% confidence level and the expected budget at 50% confidence level. The difference between the 2 figures will represent the required contingency reserve. So at 30%, it will be $6,928,000 US. At 50%, it will be $5,252,000 US. The difference between these 2 figures will be $1,676,000, which is option D. Not less than 5 questions in the exam about this topic. Yara is the project manager and she is working with her project team. and other key stakeholders to identify the risks within the project. She is currently aiming to create a comprehensive list of project risks. Therefore, she is using a facilitator to help generate ideas about the project risks. What risk identification method is Yara using? Brainstorming, Delphi technique, checklist analysis, or expert judgment? All these techniques can be used in risk identification. However, to generate a comprehensive list of ideas and risks in a short time of period, you need to use the brainstorming technique. It's a general data gathering and creativity technique that can be used to identify risks, ideas, or solutions to issues by using a group of team members or SMEs. It can generate a long list of ideas and risks in a short period of time. Expect at least one question about the brainstorming technique. Question number 6. You are managing a construction project for your organization. Your team and you are assessing risk events and working on the probability and impact matrix for the risks you already identified. In this context, which of the following statements best describes the need of developing a probability and impact matrix? The PI matrix is an important topic for the exam. You should expect frequent questions about it. However, this question is asking about the need, the best statement, or that statement that best describes why you should develop a probability and impact matrix. Focus on stakeholders' contribution to understand probability and impact scales used for the matrix. Focus on stakeholder commitment to project risk management. Focus on risk management activities, roles, and responsibilities in your project. Focus on stakeholder participation in identifying project risks. The PI matrix is best described as a tool that will help us focus on the stakeholders' contribution in order to understand the probability and impact scales using the developed matrix. It's very useful to manage and define an accurate risk tolerance for the project stakeholders, and it's very useful to remove any potential biases. Expect at least 2 questions about the PI matrix and the exam. Question number 7. A risk manager had just been hired to take over risk management responsibilities for a company producing a new drug. During the first cycle of risk identification, it was determined that the project had a high level of risk and an expert was needed to support managing risk on the project. The risk manager's first order of business is to look over the risk management plan. So this is another question about the key components of the risk management plan. In this context, which of the following will not be addressed within the risk management plan? Stakeholder risk tolerances, budget for risk activities, definitions of risk probability and impact, and the risk owner. So the risk owner will never be known at the stage of developing the risk management plan. The risk owner will be assigned officially in the plan risk response process later in the planning stage. However, risk tolerances, the budget of risk activities, and the definitions of risk probability and impact are all components of the risk management plan. Risk owners will be proposed only in the identify risks process, documented and assigned in the plan risk responses process, and both processes will occur after creating and approving the risk management plan. Question number 8. While procuring a long lead item for your construction project, the team determines that there are 2 vendor choices. Vendor A has a solution with 55% chance of completing job on time and confidence level of 60%. Vendor B has an 80% chance of meeting the time frame and confidence level of 35%. What should the team do? So this is a typical question that might appear in the exam. In my exam, I had 2 or 3 questions similar to this one with the concept of the confidence level, not only the probability. So here we have information about vendor A. There is 55% chance of completing the job on time with a confidence level. To answer this question, just multiply the confidence level by the probability, okay, and select the vendor with the higher value, because the probability of chance or the probability of success was given, not failure. So we will select the vendor with the higher value. For vendor A, it will be 55% by 60%, so 0.33. For vendor B, it's 80% by 0.35. It will give you 0.28. As the probability of completing the job on time was given, we will go with the vendor of the higher value. In our situation, it's vendor A. Expect 2 to 3 questions typical to this example. Question number 9, you have the following table of risks in your project. What is the risk that will be the team biggest concern? So here it's the result of the subjective risk analysis, the qualitative risk analysis, not the quantitative, because the probability and impact are given in the form of rating, not in the form of numbers, okay? So to find out the risk of the team biggest concern, you need to find out the risk score for each risk. Now, how to solve such questions? You give, or let's make an assumption that very high equals 5, high equals 4, moderate equals 3, low equals 2, and very low equals 1. And let's calculate the risk score by applying the formula probability rating by the impact rating, and the highest risk score will be the team biggest concern. Now, for risk A, the risk score will be 4 by 2. It will give you 8. For risk B, it's 5 by 3. It will give you 15. For risk C, it's 5 by 4. It will give you 20. And for risk D, it's very high, 5 by 3. For moderate, it will give you 15. So the risk with the highest risk score is risk C, and it is the one that will be the team biggest concern. Expect 2 questions about the risk score and the exam. The last question, Shadi is discussing his project with a colleague and he is describing his risk response strategy. He is happy that the risk response strategy is working well, but he is concerned that he has introduced some new risks to the project based on the planned strategy. What is Shadi describing? So we have a planned risk response strategy, but we are afraid as this strategy or implementing this strategy will produce or introduce another risk. This new risk is known as the secondary risk. The project management body of knowledge defines the secondary risk as those risks that arise as a direct outcome of implementing a risk response. In other words, you identify a risk and have a response plan in place to deal with that risk. A response plan is created depending on the impact of these risks on a project. Expect 2 questions in the exam about the secondary risk. This is all for the frequently asked questions. I can assure you that there will be 20 to 25 questions in the exam from this section. Thank you so much. See you at the following section.